The pharaoh's curses, the constraint from God. Then what punishment will be met out for those daring to break into the pyramid? 34. 法老的诅咒，神的约束。34. The pharaoh's curses, the constraint from God. Then what punishment will be met out for those daring to break into the pyramid? By the pharaoh's curse, all those interlopers would be killed so that no secrets could be leaked. Then what is the pharaoh's curse? When Carter and others entered a spacious chamber beneath the pyramid, they discovered a clay board on which was written, "Death will spread its wings to strangle anyone daring to disturb the peace of the pharaoh." On another statue was carved, "I am the one who guard the tomb of Tutankhamun and fight against the tomb robbers away with the help of burning desert." The above are the two curses from the pharaoh. Then can the pharaoh's curse really cast an irresistible spell? Let's look at some of the examples collected. Kammerer, who was responsible for the excavation, died suddenly of serious illness soon after the tomb was opened on December 5, 1922. His sister wrote in her memoir, "I heard him crying with high fever. I have heard his calling. I will follow him before his death." Another responsible person, Carter, died at the age of 65 in 1939 without being cursed, yet his favorite pet canary was bitten to death by a snake one day. His daughter hanged herself shortly after her father's death, leaving a suicide note, "I can no longer endure the curse." In addition, one of Carter's assistants died suddenly of pulmonary disease 3 years after the excavation. Another assistant died suddenly at the age of 45 in 1929. The British investor of the excavation project, Cannabon, died miserably of an insect bite within half a year after the completion of the project. At the time, the nurse attending him heard him crying before his death, "I am over, because I have already heard the calling." Later, the nurse also died inexplicably. 6 months after his death, his half-brother Captain Hebard committed suicide because of schizophrenia. In 1939, his mother-in-law also died suddenly, said to be of an insect bite too. The American railway magnate Gruder died suddenly of plague shortly after visiting the mausoleum. The zillionaire of South Africa, Theo, drowned himself unexpectedly shortly after he returned to the yacht from the visit of the gold mask of Tutankhamun on the excavation site of the tomb. Professor Richard, who conducted the X-ray examination of the mummy of the pharaoh, died of a high fever a few days after the examination work. Curator of Cairo Museum Mechelin died barely 4 weeks after he claimed that he did not believe in curses. The doctor confirmed that he died of a heart attack. By the end of 1923, 22 people participated in the excavation died unexpectedly of sudden illnesses consecutively. In 1971, the archaeologist Emery died shortly after being attacked by total paralysis on his unsuccessful trip to search for the ancient tombs 30 kilometers south of Cairo. Professor Dormethrin, who entered the tomb to copy the inscriptions, also met tragic death. The culture relic administrator of the Egyptian government was injured by an automobile and died in hospital 3 days later because he had agreed to have Tutankhamun's mementos exhibit in Paris outside Egypt too. His daughter was also killed in a traffic accident. Dr. Mio here is preparing Egyptian antique exhibition, died suddenly at home 1 week after he signed the exhibition agreement. The 2 pilots died successively of heart attacks shortly after airlifting Tutankhamun's mementos. When the gold mask was on display in America's San Francisco, a police officer was suddenly hospitalized because of heart attack. When asked the reason, he said, "It seems that something behind the mask was exerting a force that makes one tremble with fear when standing in front of it." Mr. Moser, who had helped push over a major wall, contracted a disease analogous to nerve disorder and died. The people who died successively also include Reed, who conducted the first X-ray examination of the pharaoh's body, and the American zillionaire Wolf. According to investigation, the sudden deaths of at least 40 archaeologists were related to the mausoleum of the pharaoh. The above is only a record of the deaths of some celebrated people. How about other anonymous participants? Many must have died unknowingly. But because of anonymity, no one would bother to explore the reason of death. Around 1900 years before the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1923, someone excavated a stone coffin in Egypt's ancient tomb, on which was inscribed, "Whoever has touched this stone coffin will be met with disaster or be drowned in the sea." Indeed, participants have died unexpectedly one after another. Later, the stone coffin was bought by an American zillionaire and was taken abroad, Titanic bound for America in March 1912. It never occurred to people that Titanic collided on the sea unexpectedly with an iceberg appearing out of nowhere, and the stone coffin was swallowed along with the large ship. The above is a collection of materials concerning the deaths of personnel related to Egypt's tombs. Please use your own discretion as to the truth of the materials. If you don't believe them, you may well try out the results by going to embrace the gold mask of Tutankhamun or personally visit the ancient mausoleum. Since the pyramid is the womb for the birth of mankind, filled with unlimited mysteries, which once discovered by man, will have a direct bearing on the question of whether man should continue to exist on Earth. Just like the modern cloning technology, the mass reproduction of man will pose a direct threat to the balance of various space life forms and destroy the transmigration order of life. Man should be kept from taking such risks. If the dogs we keep in our homes gradually acquire the wisdom of man, then shall we continue to keep them or dispose of them? If a curious person wants to pry into the top secrets of the Defense Ministry, we will first adopt protective measures like guards and electronic protection. But what shall we do if he has already gained access to the confidential chamber? Shall we watch helplessly and let him expose the top secrets? Prying into others' secrets is an extremely dangerous act and a stupid behavior that asks for unnecessary troubles. The secret pryers may suffer the punishments corresponding to the levels of the secrets, like intimidation, tongue-cutting, exoculation, imprisonment, and killing. Let's behave in an honest manner and keep ourselves from being misled by curiosity to death. All mystery will ultimately be revealed, but it takes time to do so. Now it is not time yet for people to pry into such secrets. When opportunity strikes, certainly someone will explain the secrets. Anyone who is proficient in cloning technology, I'd better keep quiet here. Just think it over. Well, that's all for my talk about the pyramid and the pharaoh's curses. Can we sense the existence of the greatest creator from these mysterious phenomena? 35. 神秘的百慕大为何神秘? 35. Why is the mysterious Bermuda so enigmatic? I am not at all surprised and suspicious at the mysterious and strange phenomena in geography because more than 2 decades ago I personally witnessed a miraculous scene on Si'er Mountain in Zhangjiago City, Hebei Province. I was studying at a school in Zhangjiago then. I used to invite several classmates to go climbing on Sundays. Once halfway up the mountain, we saw 3 closely linked caves at the intervals of less than half a meter, each of them about 1 meter wide. We looked into the caves out of curiosity. I did not remember which cave we looked first. I only remembered that in one cave cold wind blew on our faces. In another cave droplets of water were dripping into the small ponds inside the cave. And in the third cave there was neither wind nor water, but the cave was covered with ice. We stood beside the caves, fantasizing the formation of such strange scenes. It was at the turn of spring and summer. The ice in the cave should have long been melted. Where did the ice come from? Besides, why was there no ice in other 2 caves? What is even more bewildering was where the wind was from. Laden with suspicions and bewilderment, we came down the mountain like someone who had discovered a new continent and asked a local, "Do you know that there are 3 odd caves in this mountain?" "Yes, sure," he smiled. "One is the wind cave, another is the water cave, and the third is the ice cave. They have been there ever since I was capable of remembering. This mountain is called Sea Mountain. Kowtow in front of the caves, and you will be bestowed with a son in the future. Wow, too miraculous. Later on when I thought of that, I often asked myself whether it was because I always kowtowed in Sea Mountain that I have been bestowed with son. Sea Mountain is a mountain of gospel. Bermuda, however, is not a place where one can pray for blessing. Bermuda Triangle has been called Devil's Triangle, Death Triangle, Graveyard for Ships and Planes, Black Hole on Earth, and the like. Then what is Bermuda? What is Bermuda Triangle? Why does it have so appalling nicknames? Bermuda is an archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean consisting of more than 360 islands. Bermuda Triangle refers to the triangular maritime space formed by Bermuda Islands in the north, Puerto Rico of the Caribbean Sea in the south, and American Florida Peninsula in the west. Bermuda has been called Death Delta because a lot of mysterious shipwrecks and plane crashes have frequently happened in this area. The selected several reports to help you to realize the mysteries of Bermuda. How appalling and mysterious the sea area of Bermuda Triangle can be. As early as 500 years ago, the famous explorer Columbus encountered magical and formidable natural scenes there. It was in 1500 when Columbus was on his fourth voyage to America. En route, he passed the sea area of Bermuda in the Atlantic Ocean. One day, he walked out of the cabin and stood on the deck with his companions to enjoy the beautiful scenery on sea. At the time the sky was as clear as could be, the sea was calm like a mirror, which reflected the bright moonlight. The sea sprays surging against the ship looked like piles of snow-white pearls. The blending of the expansive water and sky elicited a refreshing and energizing sense. Columbus and his teammates were intoxicated with the beautiful and charming scenes on sea when suddenly a dramatic change of weather happened. Instantly, the sky became overcast, the gales blasted. The sea water built up into crests of dozens of meters and crashed against the deck like crushing water walls. At that time, it seemed that the ship was navigating through the gorge, where no sunlight was visible. With the ship bumping violently on the sea, Columbus was nervously commanding the sailors, attempting to bring the ship to the nearest berth along the coast of Florida. Although all people aboard made concerted efforts to turn the course of navigation, all the navigation equipment in the ship failed to function at that moment. All the sailors felt confused and disoriented. Without the direction, the ship acted like a runaway horse, no longer at the command of the sailors. They could do nothing but let it drift, praying that they could escape from the treacherous situation. Luckily, they finally managed to get out of the raging wind and surging waves after days and nights of struggle. All went back to normal, and the ship sailed forward steadily and smoothly. Columbus has made a detailed description of this breathtaking encounter in his logbook. The earliest record of the mysterious disappearance of ships and sailors in Bermuda Triangle is that of a French sailing boat Lo Charlie discovered in the sea area near Bermuda in August 1840. With raising of all the sails, the boat that carried fruits and brocades and other cargoes remained intact, without the slightest damage to the hull. But there was no trace of men aboard. The only living creature was the canary, almost starved to death. No one knew what had happened to the boat and where the people on board had gone. Later in 1872, similar inexplicable event also happened here. An accident happened to a brigantine Maria 100 sea miles west of Azores. The boat sent signals for help. 11 days later, when the boat was discovered, there was not a single man aboard. The tables in the dining room, however, were still laid with lush food like bread and butter. In the cups there was still water and coffee left. The clocks on the wall were still ticking. There were still vials containing machine oil on the sewing machines. All this indicated that the boat had not encountered any powerful rainstorm. How can we explain these phenomena? In December 1945, on a flight training, Captain Taylor of America's 19th Aerocade led 14 pilots in 5 Avenger torpedo bombers to take off from Fort Lauderdale Airport. As an experienced pilot with 2,599 hours of flight, he had no difficulty at all in accomplishing such training tasks. But when the aerocade flew over the Bahamas base suddenly received the calling of Captain Taylor, "My compass has failed functioning. I am over the unconnected land." In the following 2 hours, the radio communications were frequently interrupted, but they still could know from the signals that they were flying north or east. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the headquarters received Taylor's calling, "I cannot figure out my position. I am not clear where I am." Then the signals of electric waves became weaker until dead. Feeling that something must have gone wrong, the headquarters immediately dispatched a hydro aeroplane to conduct searching. Half an hour later, the people on an oil tanker saw a ball of flames. The hydro aeroplane had crashed. In a short period of 6 hours, 6 planes and 15 pilots had vanished into thin air. There was nothing that could account for the disappearance, and the American authorities were shocked. The military was determined to thoroughly investigate the accident. The next day, 300 planes and 21 naval ships and aircraft carriers conducted the largest scale of search within 6 million square kilometers of the sea area. The scope of the search included every stretch of the sea area from Bermuda to Mexico Gulf. The 5-day search failed to discover any traces of the 6 planes. In 1935, the sailors of the Italian cargo ship Lex saw an American sailboat radar homer engulfed gradually by the surfs. But 5 days later, they saw with their own eyes the same sailboat float on the sea. Another prominent case is the disappearance of the American Navy's supporting ship Single-Eyed in March 1918, which carried manganese. The huge cargo ship had 309 sailors and was equipped with the best radio devices of the time, but it vanished without sending any signal for help. In 1951, when searching in this sea area for a warship they lost here, a Brazilian hydroaeroplane discovered a massive black object moving past under the water of Bermuda at an astonishing speed. In February 1977, a pilot flying a private hydroaeroplane discovered that the needle of the compass deflected dozens of degrees when the plane was over the Bermuda Sea area. The people who were having their meals discovered that the knives and forks in the plates also became bended. After leaving the area, they also found that strong noise was recorded in the tape of the cassette recorder. A captain of American Shipwreck Salvation Company said that once when his ship passed the sea area of Bermuda, the index on the compass suddenly swayed violently. The power of the running diesel engine suddenly vanished. The surging billows dashed and heaved vehemently. The ship was surrounded by dense fog. He ordered his steersman to drive the ship at full speed. Ultimately, the ship dashed out of the dense fog. But the waves outside that sea area was actually not high and there was no fog. He said that he had never encountered such strange things. In 1943, a doctor called Jusa conducted an experiment with the collaboration of the American Navy. He used 2 magnetic force generators to create very powerful magnetic force. When the magnetic generators were turned on, green mist arose around the ship. Both the ship and people had received certain stimulus. Some people recovered after treatment, while Jusa killed himself after the experiment. The result was also inconclusively. In 1979, a joint investigation team consisting of the American and French scientists discovered a tremendous underwater pyramid in the Bermuda Sea area. According to the photos taken by the persons dispatched by Charles Blease, the honorary curator of America's Miami Museum, the underwater pyramid was even greater than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. There were 2 black holes in the pyramid, through which the sea water flowed at a very high speed. Why have the ships and planes vanished mysteriously without any traces left behind? Why have all the people on board disappeared, and yet the boat and other things on board have remained intact? All this goes back to 2 billion years ago, when the greatest creator dispatched the many angels, celestial being, and Buddha, led by God to create the life forms other than human beings on Earth. These angels constructed many life-creating laboratories, pyramids in Bermuda and Pacific and the Atlantic along the 30 degrees north latitude and 30 degrees south latitude. After 5 billion years, they completed all projects and evacuated from the Earth. At that time, these regions were not seas, but temperate continent with a climate of spring all the year around. In order to keep the secrets, They dealt with the sites before evacuation in a manner similar to children's clay molding and the cook's paste-making. All the places constructed with pyramids subsided beneath the sea and the ocean rose to become continent. The various continents of today came into being 1.5 billion years ago. The roof of the world Himalayas was also a masterpiece of the time. Just like the pyramids of Egypt, Bermuda, and other areas have also adopted measures to prevent the access of people. As to the secrets therein, we can only understand them from the dimensions of time and space. Please refer to Time and Space of the Universe for details. 36. 海市蜃楼，极乐世界的显现。36. Mirage, the emergence of Elysium world. Scientists, especially meteorologists and opticists, may sniff at my conception of mirage as the emergence of Elysium world, criticizing me for not having the least knowledge of the refraction and total reflection of light. Indeed, I know very little about optics and meteorology, and I dare not to show off what I know in this aspect so that I won't leave an impression of displaying my scarce skill before an expert. Since I have my own definite understanding of the origin of the universe, the origin of life, the origin of man, and the 36-dimension space, I also have my own explanation for mirage, for which I hope to obtain the further analysis of experts in different perspectives. What is mirage? Mirage is the revelation of celestial being and Buddha to mankind. It is the appearance of the scenes of the Elysium world in 36-dimension space in human world. That is, mirage is the real situation that exists in Elysium world. Some describe mirage as entirely imaginary, changeable and unpredictable, real yet illusory, and fairyland-like. The description is really to the point, and fairyland-like, in particular, has delineated the real situation of mirage. Strictly speaking, mirage is fairyland, and the Elysium world of the West, preached by Buddhism, is such a fairyland. When fortunate people see endless ranges of mountains, borderless ocean, towering pavilions, pagodas and towers, the appearing and disappearing cities and forts, serene landscapes from the seaside, the desert, the Gobi Desert, or the lake, they will certainly have an inexpressible feeling for the beautiful heavenly visions. What are they? Where do they come from? Are they the paradise or the human world? According to scientists, mirage is an optical phenomenon of the atmosphere. It is the result of the refraction and total reflection of light in the atmospheres of different densities. More accurately, after being illuminated by light, the natural scenery on Earth will be reflected into the atmosphere. As a result of the dramatic temperature changes in the desert or the ocean, the local air will form different densities. When the light reflected by an object enters the high-density air from the low-density air, the scenery on the Earth will be projected in the air, just like the refraction of a chopstick in a bowl of water. Thus, mirage is formed. This explanation seems reasonable, but let me propose the following details and see what we can find. All explanations point out that mirage results from the refraction or total reflection of the distant views. I want to ask where the distance is. How far away should the distance be? There are records for many visions appearing in the sky. Have scientists found the similar sceneries in the distance that correspond to the mirage? After the refraction, is the image positive image or an inverted image? If the reflection is an inverted image, why the image in the sky is positive image? If the reflection is an erect image after refraction, why is some mirage upside down? Does the reflected light enter from the thinner medium into the dense medium, or from the dense medium into the thinner medium? That is to say, is the light refracted from the sky downward or from the Earth upward? If the objects on Earth refract the light upward, the direction of the refraction can only be from the lower position to the higher position. Why does the refraction also occur in the upper to lower direction? Of course, it can be said that after n times of refraction by the atmosphere, the light can also be reflected from the upper to the lower position. This is only theoretically possible, but practically unfeasible. If feasible, we may see mirages every day. Some experts say that when exposed to the burning sun, the sand in the desert will rise quickly in temperature because of its low specific heat. The lower air close to the sand will have a very high temperature, while the temperature of the upper air still remains very low, and thus the abnormal distribution of air temperature is formed. Since objects expand with heat and contract with cold, the lower hot air close to the sand has a very low density, while the upper cold air has a great density. As a result, the refractive index of the air is small in the lower air and large in the upper air. If the light reflected by the higher object in the distance is continuously being refracted when entering the thinner lower air from the denser upper air, the angle of incidence will gradually increase until the appearance of total reflection when it reaches the critical angle. This theoretical analysis seems tenable. My question is, if this theory tallies with the actual situation, then mirages will be frequently seen in the air above the desert. But why is it that in the air above the desert people cannot see a mirage for many decades? Do these deserts not fall within the scope of your theories? Of course, experts may argue that the desert should have special geographical and climatic environments for the happening of mirages. Without such conditions, no mirage will occur even in the air above the desert. Then my question is, what special conditions are necessary for the occurrence of mirages over the sky in the desert? And which desert on Earth does not possess such special conditions? Experts' explanation for mirages happening over the sea goes like this. In summer, on the calm water surface, the upper layer of air is very hot and has a small density because of its exposure to the sunlight, while the air close to the water has a lower temperature and greater density as a result of the influence of the water current. When the lower air and upper air has great differences in temperature, and when the density is small in the upper air and great in the lower air, the mirage will happen when light reflected by the islands, towns, and ships in the surrounding horizons goes through upper-lower refraction or total reflection. Yes, if in summer it is easy to form a thinner upper air and a dense lower air in the air over the sea, then how about autumn and winter? Why did mirage still happen over Panglai Peninsula on December 16, 2002, when the area of Shandong province was already in the season of winter? Suppose the experts are right in their theory, then in summer all the upper air over the sea will be thinner and all the lower air over the sea will be denser. But why have mirages not appeared in the sky over the so many other stretches of seas? In recent years, mirages frequently appear in the sky over Shandong's Panglai Peninsula. According to experts, this is the result of improvement and cleaning of environment in recent years. Now Panglai has fresh air and clean environment, so mirages frequently occur there. This must be politicians' statement, not the conclusion of experts. If experts have come to such a conclusion, then please answer my question. Why did not mirages always occur in Panglai Peninsula before the age of industrial revolution on Earth, during which period the air was even fresher and better in quality than it is today? Why did mirages occur only once every few years? What is the air of America's Hawaii like if compared with that of Panglai? Then why don't mirages always occur there? Experts may reinforce their theory by saying, the special natural environment of Panglai is the major reason attributable to the occurrence of mirages. There is no such environment in other places, so mirages are unlikely to appear. Suppose this explanation is correct, then please answer my question. If Panglai Peninsula has very special natural conditions, the visions of all the mirages should be basically the same images. But why is the image of each mirage different from the others? Is it possible that the natural environment of Panglai is changing every year? As we have known about the refraction of light, the light will keep its direction and speed of diffusion when traversing the medium with an even density. When the light slants through two media with different densities, it will go through changes of speed and deflections of directions at the contact area or interface of the two media. This theory is correct, but is not acceptable when it is used to explain the occurrence of mirages. In terms of aerosphere, there is difference of densities not only between troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, ionosphere, and exosphere, but also in the same aerosphere. In this case, Refraction of light will certainly occur when the sun shines its light upon the Earth. That is, just like the moon we see in the water, we can also see many illusory suns in the aerosphere. But why can't we see them? The densities of the air are different not only during the day but also at night. When the bright moon is high in the sky, we can see the reflected moon in the water, but why can't we see the illusory reflections of the moon refracted in the different densities of the air? My explanation for mirage is that mirage is not the refracted image of scenery on the ground, but a contortion of time and space of the Elysium world, which has been purposefully arranged by the greatest creator to demonstrate to mankind. Your sky is not an illusion, but another time and space and another world. You mankind has a great future. When introducing the 36-dimension Elysium world, I have made it clear that the 1,000-year world and 10,000-year world are at very distant places, but the Elysium world is close at hand. The entire Earth and universe is the Elysium world. Namely, the Earth, the Solar System, the Milky Way galaxy, the Rotary River galaxy and Low Rotary galaxy all belong to the Elysium world. All that we see are just illusory images, mirages, short-lived prosperity, flowers, grass and trees, insects, birds and beasts, rivers, lakes and seas, celestial bodies and the universe, and even human life. What place is not illusory? The answer: the Elysium world. Emptiness is not emptiness and color is not color. The smaller the energy, the more definite the form. The greater the energy, the less definite the form. Hence, great form has no contour. Why can't we see the Elysium world? It is because our eyes do not have the needed structure. Can we see ultraviolet and infrared? Can we see electromagnetic waves and biological waves? Can we see gamma rays and beta rays? We are in a wonderful world, the Elysium world, and we have seen less than 3% of the surrounding world. Why can't we see everything in the world? It is because our merits and virtues have not yet reached that standard. Just like somebody's question, why can't we live in the White House, Kremlin, and Zhongnanhai? Why? Try to find the answer by yourself. I have some information here, which may help us to know about time and space. On January 28, 1915, a Turkish army was marching toward position number 60 in Gallipoli. When they had ascended the hill, several masses of clouds descended vertically to hang over the whole hill. Metal-like rays of light seemed to have shot out from among the clouds. Then was the time of magic. The gallant troops in high spirit strode into the clouds and disappeared one by one. A soldier named Richard who fell behind the ranks was terrified to see such a frightening scene. He yelled at them, trying desperately to stop the march of his comrades. However, it seemed that they turned a deaf ear to him and entered the clouds as if were spellbound. After a moment, the masses of clouds ascended slowly and vertically and drifted away into the distance. The hill still remained, but the whole corps lost their traces. They have vanished into thin air. Where have they gone? They have entered the mirage. In 1994, an Italian airliner suddenly vanished from the radar screen of the control room when it flied over African coast. A short time later, it reappeared on the screen. When the plane landed on the airport, the man on duty asked the pilot what had happened during the flight. Why it failed to be tracked. The airscrew felt at a loss because their flight had been smooth and no accident or trouble had occurred. Later, someone accidentally discovered that his watch was 20 minutes slower. The investigation revealed that the watches of all the crew and 315 passengers were all 20 minutes slower. What has happened? Where have they been in the 20 minutes? Why were they not aware of what had happened? Why can't the screen display what has happened? As I have discussed in Time and Space of the Universe, time can be divided into transverse time and longitudinal time. Longitudinal time is the time of the material world and transverse time is the time of non-material world. We humans live in the longitudinal time, which resembles the x-axis of the complex function. The transverse time is like the z-axis of the complex function. When a person or object vanishes from the longitudinal time, it has entered the transverse time and space. Whenever it comes back, he will still return to the original point of time. But for us, maybe a year, A decade or several hundred years have passed. The Italian airliner has vanished for 20 minutes because they have entered the transverse time and space. For the plane and people aboard, it may be a wink of the eye. So they could not realize that they have once disappeared, but for the person in the control room of the airport, it has been 20 minutes. What is the transverse time and space? Mirage is the transverse time and space. During my childhood, my grandma told me a story. A woodman got lost one day when he was collecting firewood in the mountain. Having sauntered in the mountain for a long time, he suddenly discovered two old men completely immersed in a chess game on a beautiful slope. He did not intend to disturb them, but squatted beside them and watched them play. All was so auspicious and natural. The only thing puzzling him is that the leaves close by were endlessly changing their colors. Yellow for one moment, but green for the next. After a long spell, when he returned his gazes from the distance to what is near him, the two old men had vanished from his sight. He trembled with fear, and suddenly realized that this was a familiar place where he had been collecting firewood many times. Once aware of his place, he walked home along the familiar path. When he approached the village, he found that great changes had taken place in his village. Doubting whether this was his own village, he headed for his home along the path in his memory. But on his way, everyone he met just gazed at him like a stranger. He could not recognize any of them either. Suspecting that he might have come to the wrong village, he inquired about his original village from people he met. All echoed that this was the village that he asked about. He asked whether they knew such and such a person. They answered who was whose grandpa and who was whose grandma, and that all of them had passed away. When he asked about himself, he was told that he was whose grandpa and had never come back from his trip to the mountain to gather firewood when he was young. Now let's analyze why the woodman got lost when he was gathering firewood in the mountain he was familiar with. The reason was that he had suddenly entered the mirage, which had a different environment from his former one. Thus he would certainly get lost. Why did he suddenly realize where he was after a cold shiver? This was because the mirage had disappeared, and he was again standing on the familiar place. He suddenly awakened to his world. Now that he had the luck to enter the mirage, Elysium world, why did he not disappear together with the mirage? It was because his psychic energy had not measured up to the standard for living entirely in the Elysium world. Then why was he permitted to witness the scenes in the Elysium world? It was because he had such a luck. The two old men playing chess must have been his relative or friends, who had come to reveal to him that although he was not presently entitled to live in the Elysium world actually existed, and that he could realize the existence and laid foundation for his future entrance into the Elysium world. This is the story about time and space. The woodman has entered another domain of time and space. When he returned from the transverse time, he was still his old self, but the longitudinal time of the human world had passed hundreds of years. Thus, Mirage is only a revelation of the Elysium world. People who have seen the Mirage has had the luck to witness the scenes of the Elysium world, although they have not entered its domain. The Mirage will appear not only in the sky, but also on the ground. The two old men's chess playing was a mirage unfolding on the ground. Even if there were many people in the mountain at that time, no one except the woodman could see the mirage, just like the phantasms appearing in the head of a person who has taken heroin. He has truly seen the scenes, although others claim to have seen nothing. People who saw the mirage are lucky. If we can understand from the mirage that there are different visions in different time and spaces, we can open up our thinking and realize that our human world is only a material world in the time and space of the universe, and that there are many more beautiful worlds apart from this material world. Then why don't we set off for the more beautiful world? The greatest creator has not treated us only as a batch of animals. He has revealed to people with greater telegnosis another serene and glorious road of life. God, Jesus, and Buddha Sakyamuni are not fooling us. All tricksters have only personal interest in mind, but are Jesus and Sakyamuni pursuing personal gains? They have abandoned all their worldly belongings, so why should they deceive us? You can cheat the wealthy people for their money and fool those in power to get certain advantage. But what good is there to cheat us, who have nothing at all. 37. 梦在昭示着什么? 37. Dream. What does it presage? Dreamland is one of the 36 dimension time and spaces. Dream is a phenomenon, behind which there is a hidden essence, as is the case with any phenomenon. It is the hidden essence that has caused the emergence of phenomenon. Mirage is only a phenomenon, but the essence that has caused the phenomenon of mirage is the Elysium world. Movement is a phenomenon, but the essence causing the occurrence of this phenomenon is instinct and gravitation. Man is also a phenomenon, and the essence prompting the emergence of man is the transmigration of life. What is the essence of dream? The essence of dream is the rehearsal and presage of future event. Let's first have a look at some examples about dream. On an April night in 1865, Lincoln, the American well-known president, had a dream, in which he discovered a crowd of people wailing when he strolled in the White House. He entered a room and found that his soldiers were guarding a corpse. He asked them whose body this was. They answered, "The president. He was assassinated." The next day, he told this dream to his wife and other people. Several days later, this terrible dream came true. President Lincoln was assassinated. Before the sailing of the famous passenger ship, Titanic, a British merchant named Canon Middleton dreamed of the ship floating on the sea with upturned keels. Crews and passengers around were swimming and floating. The next night, he had the same dream, which prompted him to cancel the plan to travel by Titanic. Very soon, his dream became a reality. In August 2002, I had this dream. I was walking on a strange road when suddenly a massive cloud drifted over my head. I jumped up to pull the cloud down, only to find that the cloud resembled a bundle of coiled cotton. I unfolded the bundle layer by layer and saw a new hat, a new suit of clothes, and a new pair of shoes in the bundle. The only thing lacking was a pair of trousers. The next day, I told the dream to my wife, who grumbled, "That might not be a good omen." In the next few months, I busied myself madly for several people who claimed to have lost the love of their fathers, and they affectionately called me Dad. But actually, I was fooled and cheated, nearly ripped of all my belongings earned through years of hard work. This is really a case 3 decades of toil end up in nothing in a night's time. Later, upon reflection, I came to realize the omen of this dream. New hat, new clothes, and new shoes foretold that I would have no hat, clothes, and shoes to wear. In the dream, no trousers appeared, so I was left with a scanty amount of property to subsist on. There is another story about dream. I cannot remember from which book I have read the story and what names the characters have. An influential official in one dynasty of China had a dream one night, in which he rode the carriage of the incumbent prime minister, and the prime minister drove the carriage for him. But the prime minister moved only 8 steps forward. When he awoke from the dream, he analyzed his dream to some relevant people, saying that he would succeed the position of the prime minister and his tenure would last 8 years. It later proved that his dream had come true as analyzed. The above, for example, shown that, far from being illusory and untrue, dreams are rehearsals and revelations of the future realities. There are a large number of dreams in this aspect, which have been recorded in a lot of books, foreign or domestic, ancient or modern, especially in the Bible. Actually, if we are good at summarization, we will find that all our dreams are a demonstration of what is in store for us in future. Whether we can uncover their secrets depends on our analytical capability and telegnosis. I find that China's ancient book, Duke Zhou's Interpretation of Dreams, is a very valuable book. The correlations between dreams and their predictions are almost correct. You may well have a try and interpret your own dreams with the help of this book. The famous book, Interpretations of Dreams, by Freud has certain significance in psychological analyses, but it did an extremely poor job in analyzing the essence of dream. In the chapter, The Unconscious and Consciousness, Reality, Freud says, "And how about the value of the dream for a knowledge of the future? That, of course, we cannot consider." One feels inclined to substitute foreknowledge of the past. Many dreams are obviously predicting the future happenings, but Freud did not admit this. Many dreamlands have always been beyond the expectations of the dreamers, but Freud would stick to his opinion that foreknowledge of the past. The majority of people believe that dreams are fantasies and illusions emerging from their subconsciousness. But I would say that the visions of dreams are not scenes in the subconsciousness, but rather the revelation of another time and space. Our fleshes are sleeping on bed, but our spiritual beings have left our fleshes and entered another time and space. Let's have a look at the following example. An American businessman called Wilmot once took the passenger ship called Limerick and left Liverpool of England for America. One night he dreamed that his wife, whom he had not seen for a long time, came aboard his ship in sleepwear. She walked directly toward him and kissed him. When she attempted to sleep with him, she spotted another man in the cabin. Thus she hesitated for a second and vanished. The next morning that man called William Ted, who shared the cabin with him, said to him, "Last night, I saw you were with a woman," and he forced Wilmore to make clarifications as to whether he had secretly seduced any woman. Wilmore was greatly surprised. "Last night I dreamed that my wife came to see me. Have you also had this dream and have seen the scenes of my dream?" What is even more amazing, when he returned to his home in New York, his wife told him that once she dreamed that she went aboard his ship and kissed him, but left when she discovered another man in the cabin. Weird? Inconceivable? The above is a typical dream. In fact, none of our dreams are illusory. Instead, they all have a solid existence. A story is thus recorded in a book. Two girls shared a room with two separate beds. One night, one of the girls saw dimly a handsome man having sex with her roommate. The roommate was groaning with a great sense of comfort. Blushing shamefully, she quickly covered her head with the quilt. After a while, when she had completely sobered up, she lifted the quilt to steal another glance, but found that the man had left and her roommate was sleeping like a log. The next morning, she said to her roommate impatiently, "What have you done last night? Be honest and tell me who that man was." Completely taken aback, her roommate thought to herself, "How did she know what happened in my dream last night?" So she put a bold face. "What man? I have been sleeping on my bed all night. Stop talking nonsense." That girl rebuked, "I thought we were good friends for years. I saw clearly you were sleeping with a handsome man last night. Why do you deny?" Without choice, her roommate told her that in her dream last night, she could not resist the temptation of a handsome man and had an affair with him. The matters in dreams are more complicated than those in the human world. One cannot explore all the secrets of dreams in his lifetime research. I have cited a few examples here to demonstrate to you that dreams are another time and space and another real world. By far, man is still at the initial stage in understanding dreams. Only if we believe in the greatest creator can we uncover the many secrets in the universe. Otherwise, we will be like a swarm of aimless flies and take a shot in the dark. 38. 宗教与上帝 38. Religion and the greatest creator. First, we must know what religion is. Religion is a spiritual and psychological activity through which man gets to know, believe in, worship, and follow God and Buddha. Strictly speaking, only Christianity and Buddhism can be called real religions. Although Islamism and Catholicism are also practiced as religions, they have interfered too much in secular affairs. So Islamism and Catholicism cannot be counted as pure religion. Hinduism was formed earlier than Buddhism, but actually it can only be regarded as a source for Buddhism. Derived from the blending of Bhakti and the Sufi orders of Islamism, Sikhism has no independent ideological system since its content can be found in Buddhist sutras and in the Quran. China's Taoism mainly preaches the unity of heaven and man and the telepathy between heaven and man. Without a system of theory about God, Taoism cannot be regarded as a spiritual and psychological activity through which man gets to know, believe in, worship, and follow God and Buddha, but a social activity of mankind. Derived from the blending of Buddhism and Taoism, Japan's Shintoism also has no new content and system. Protestantism and Orthodox Church are branches of Christianity, so they do not have independent ideological system. Primitive religions cannot be regarded as a religion but only a social activity because they are mainly a worship of ghosts and gods, ancestors, totems, and idols, and do not have an integrate understanding of God. Ancient Egyptian religion, ancient Babylonian religion, the worship of celestial ruler supreme god in China's Yin and Zhou dynasties, Phoenician religion, Hinduism religion, Vedic religion, and ancient Iranian religion. All these have basically evolved from primitive religion. They mainly worship natural objects or natural force, and they do not have a perfect perception of God. Therefore, they can only be a social activity and cannot become pure spiritual and psychological activity. Having its own independent understanding of God, Zoroastrianism, called fire worship religion in China's history, was later absorbed by Christianity and Buddhism. Its essence is still visible in the Christian and Buddhist classics. The essence of Manichaeism, called Zoroastrianism in China, can also be found in Christian and Buddhist classics. Thus, Manichaeism also has no independent and perfect system. Brahmanism is actually Vedic religion in essence. A religion of ancient India, Brahmanism has gods in the form of personified natural phenomena. Its theory of 3 paths and 4 lives has been modified and carried forward by Sakyamuni. Hinduism has a long history and a numerous and jumbled content, but it does not have a clear thinking and path and renders a perplexed feeling, so it cannot be regarded as a religion. Jainism has a long history and an independent theoretical system, but its essence has been incorporated into Buddhism and the dross's parts have been overthrown by science, and thus it cannot survive as a religion. Strictly speaking, Judaism is not the religion of God, but the religion of the greatest creator. Its scriptures are mainly the Old Testament of the Bible, but it is not perfect as a religion of the greatest creator because it cannot answer the basic questions concerning the characteristics of the greatest creator, and thus is not convincing. Although pursuing the consciousness and love of God in the level of spiritual nature, Kirtan and the Bhakti movement has confused the greatest creator with God, and its leader does not consider Krishna consciousness movement a religion, but only regards it as a movement of science, thus confusing science with religion. Therefore, the movement can only be regarded as reflection of the wisdom of ancient Indian sages and cannot be considered a religion. Falun Gong that prevailed in the last few years was a philosophical pursuit of truth, kindness, and endurance by the common people with a pent-up spiritual nature. Falun Gong had no clear understanding of God and Buddha, and its concept of space was also perplexing. Therefore, it can only be counted as a mass social activity and is not a religion. In other small religious groups, small numbers of people suffering emotional and spiritual emptiness engage in a blind, spiritual, and emotional pursuit to get rid of loneliness and seek group identity or comfort, just like a crowd of people getting together to chat and divert their humdrum, which cannot be counted as religions. In the future, Christianity and Buddhism will be the only religions remaining, and the rest will gradually perish with the development of science and the progress of mankind. Christianity and Buddhism are 2 relatively independent and complete religions, as well as 2 contradictory religions. However, as a social phenomenon, religion will ultimately perish with the passage of time, and in the future the great variety of religions will be unified as one single religion. How do the different religions unify as a whole? Let's take a look at the religions that have appeared in history. At the beginning of each religion, all its followers were firmly convinced that their religion was the only true religion that would exist forever, and other religions were all evil cults and heresies. However, with the development of the times, the progress of mankind, and especially the flourishing of science, those religions have all faded out from the stage of history. Then, can Christianity and Buddhism exist forever? We have to ask the greatest creator to answer this question. Can the greatest creator create 2 mutually contradicting religions? If this question is not easy to answer, we might as well ask directly, was religion created by the greatest creator? If the answer is yes, then the disappearance of religions and the mutual contradictions between different religions can only prove the disorganized thinking of the greatest creator. But this is not the case for the greatest creator we meant. If the answer is no, this shows that Christianity and Buddhism are not the religion of the greatest creator. If religion is not created by the greatest creator, then who made it be, man God or Buddha? No matter whether it is created by man, God, or Buddha, or how difficult it is for its followers to accept the reality, the religion will finally die out if it cannot answer all the questions raised by man and cannot explain all the phenomena of the nature and life of the universe, because this religion can no longer guide man. Religion was progressive at the time of its emergence and had pushed forward the development of human history. However, if we stick to some old-fashioned doctrines and guide today's activities with the teachings of 2,000 years ago, the development of our spiritual nature will only be hindered. In the same way the dynasties in history had all propelled the development of social productivity and facilitated social progress at the time when they were established, but with the passage of time what were originally progressive became the backward fetters hindering social development. Just like Marx's analysis, when certain superstructure is no longer adaptable to its economic foundation and the production relations are no longer suitable to the development of productivity, such superstructure and production relation is bound to be eliminated and superseded by more advanced superstructure and production relation. Why can science always prevail? The reason is that science is continually developing. If Einstein dogmatically stuck to Newton's mechanics, he would not be able to develop the theory of relativity. If later scientists held the theory of relativity as universally true, then it would be difficult for the birth of quantum mechanics. The development in the history of mathematics also has demonstrated that the future lies only in development. A glorious palace of mathematics has been created only with the continuous exploration stretching from natural number, positive number, negative number, whole number, fraction, irrational number, rational number, imaginary number, and complex number. If we only stick to natural number and deny the existence of other numbers, and if we do not engage in thinking and attempts to solve all problems with natural numbers, then humankind must be still leading a rough existence in the caves and branches and groping its way in the wilderness and ignorance. Shall we doubt the megatrend of the unification of all religions? We should continue our exploration and predict in advance the unification of all religions. The unification of all religions is not to transform all religions into one religion, and is no longer a psychological and spiritual activity to understand, believe in, worship, and follow God, but a reverence for and praise of the greatest creator. There is only one greatest creator in the universe, but there are countless gods. The greatest creator is not God, and neither is God the greatest creator. Worship God will only distract people's visions, and only by worshiping the greatest creator can we have a definite goal of progress. Instead of imposing one after another spiritual and psychological shackles on mankind, the unification of all religions is the liberation of human nature, enabling man to enjoy life freely. Thus, man will not be forced to go through complicated and tedious rituals at churches or temples. Instead of establishing more papacies, hierarchs, priests, pastors, MCs, abbots, and imams to influence people's life and actions, unification of all religions means equality between men. Unification of all religions has no fixed sutras and scriptures and tenets, but it will carry on and promote all fruits of man's wisdom. In unification of all religions, there will be no followers. It can be said that everyone is a follower and no one is a follower. All people are the subjects of the greatest creator rather than the subjects of any god or Buddha. In a word, unification of religions is the real religion of the greatest creator. It is regarded as a religion, but is not a religion in essence. Will Christianity and Buddhism really fade out from the stage of history? In today's world, there are many enthusiastic missionaries, which is a commendable phenomenon. I hope all people will participate in the religious activities. But as a missionary, you should understand the essence of the religion that you are preaching. You should answer all the questions related to God or Buddha. You may do a poor job in preaching if you yourself feel muddle-headed. Everyone engaging in religious activities should always raise questions as why? 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 Once an old Christians couple preached me enthusiastically. They had been doing this for 40 years and could almost recite the whole Bible. They never expected to meet such an inquisitive person like me who raised a lot of questions. Who planted the tree of wisdom in the Garden of Eden? Why was it planted? I had landed them in the most embarrassing situation. I had originally intended to obtain a lot of knowledge about the Bible, but ended in hurting the two old people. I still feel sorry for them even today. As far as I know, the most successful preacher of the Bible today is Jehovah's Witnesses, a group of wise, kind, and sincere people. If all the people in the whole world all become Jehovah's Witnesses, the human world will take the initial form of the paradise. The two magazines Vigilance and Lookout are inclusive book series of wisdom. But there is no perfect man in the world, nor is there perfect organization and religion. I once asked my Bible teacher, who is a Jehovah's Witness, are Eva and Adam the common ancestors for all men? The answer is positive. I asked again, are they also the ancestors of the black people of Africa? My teacher faltered here. If the answer is yes, it proves that Darwin's theory of evolution is correct and that white people can become black people and vice versa, which virtually has negated the theory of the creation of man by the greatest creator. If the answer is no, it means that Adam and Eva are not the common ancestors of mankind, which has virtually negated the verity of the Bible. It is so with Christianity. Then how about Buddhism? In modern world, there is a famous Buddhist master and a lay Buddhist well known among overseas Chinese. They are well read in Buddhist sutras. I have read their books or teaching materials. I have felt their profound spiritual nature and outstanding talents. They have made immeasurable contribution to the diffusion of Buddhism. But even the best gem is not flawless. That a gem has flaws does not mean it is not precious. Only artificial gem and glass would be free of blemish. Even people with such profound knowledge of Buddhism are also spreading fatuity. For example, one says that as long as a mosquito is not biting on the face but on other places, we should let it suck until it is full, and we should not kill it because that is killing of life. Another one takes pity on cockroaches. He will let cockroaches go on the rampage in his kitchen. He would do nothing to interfere. Once, 2 cockroaches even crawled on his table, and even then he still felt reluctant to drive them away. This care and mercy for life is something that we should learn from. The problem is this the kind of mercy advocated by Buddha? Buddhism preaches equality between all living creatures. What is the definition of all living creatures? Buddha Sakyamuni tells Subhuti in Diamond Sutra, all bodhisattvas and mahasattvas should subdue their minds as follows. All living beings born from eggs, wombs, humidity, or by transformation. With or without form. Either thoughtful or thoughtless. And neither thoughtful nor thoughtless, are all led by me to the final nirvana for the extinction of reincarnation. Although immeasurable, uncountable, and unlimitable numbers of living beings are thus led to the final nirvana for the extinction of reincarnation. His teachings tell us in definite terms that man, animals and plants, insects, microorganism, and bacteria are all living creatures. Mountains, rocks, fields, and soils, wind, clouds, rain, and snow are all living creatures. Not only tangible and visible objects are living creatures, even things invisible to man are also living creatures. Not only things capable of thinking are living creatures, objects with no thinking and consciousness are also living creatures. All living creatures are equal. We should have mercy and care for all living creatures. We should not abuse killing. And this should be the real signification of mercy preached by Buddha. However, there are principles for mercy, and mercy is mutual. The prerequisite for mercy should not violate with each other. Unprincipled mercy only leads to fatuity. Mosquitoes should have their own food and territory of activity. They should not suck man's blood and harass man. When they live in the ponds, we need not hurt them. But if they go beyond their area of existence and suck man's blood, then they are on the way to wickedness. Should we show our mercy even for those wicked things? Cockroaches are insects, and insects should live in insects' territory. Kitchens are areas of activity for man, and cockroaches should not do what they want here. If we throw the reins to cockroaches, then what shall we do if rats, flies, fleas, bugs, centipedes, house centipedes, and cobras all pour into the kitchens? If we preach unprincipled mercy, what shall farmers do with the weeds overgrowing in the crop fields? Weeds are also life. If we let them overspread the fields according to the Buddhist master and the lay Buddhist, what will the results be? People will have nothing to live on. If we advocate unprincipled mercy, how do we deal with the wounds? There are a large number of bacteria at the wound, and we will certainly kill those bacteria if we smear drugs or bind up the wound. Should we let the wound rankle and putrefy for the sake of the bacteria? What should we do with the spider's web in the bedroom? If we destroy the web, we are being cruel to the spider. But if we do not, should we watch the flies, mosquitoes, and moths ensnared by the web and eaten by the spider? Every plant is a life. Shall we or shall we not grind the life of wheat grains into flour for food? In each cup of water, there are tens of thousands of bacteria. Shall we drink or shall we not drink? Shall we move our steps or shall we not move our steps, since we will trample on tens of thousands of living beings in each step? Has the Monkey King unjustly killed the Lady Whitebone? Shall all the police be disbanded and sent home to take care of their children? No wonder that the areas where Buddhism flourishes have poorer hygienic conditions, since they are dedicated to protect lives. No wonder people in a Buddhist country tend to be worldly wise for personal safety. They dare not and are unwilling to stand out and hold out the evil things, and the evil things will just run amok. The reason is that they all have a mercy heart. Instead of adding more shackles, the tenet of religion is to liberate man, destroy the shackles of human nature, and make people enjoy a more pleasant, freer, and happier life. The more rules and regulations, the further away we are from the edifications of God and Buddha. Religion is somewhat connected with fatuity. The greatest creator has not created religion. Religion is the emotional response of man. After the unification of all religions, the greatest creator will exercise direct administration of mankind. Jesus, Sakyamuni, Muhammad, and Lao Tzu will not be forgotten. Instead, their wisdom will be further glorified. 39. 科学与文明 39. Science and civilization. Religion goes hand in hand with fatuity, while science keeps abreast with civilization. Science is the activity and knowledge to understand, explore, and interpret the laws of nature, human society, and thinking. Civilization is a voluntary behavior of man formed on the basis of the correct understanding of material world and non-material world. Without the development and progress of science, civilization is only an extravagant hope. The symbol for real civilization is no slightest conflict between man and society, and man and nature, and the sustained harmony without the regulations of laws and without the mechanisms of supervision. For example, how do we dispose of the banana peel after eating a banana on the bus? The uncivilized behavior is to throw it out of the window. We only keep a clean place for ourselves and do not care about the inconvenience to others caused by the banana peel thrown out of the window. The less uncivilized behavior is to place the banana peel under the seat and leave the bus. The civilized behavior is to take the banana peel away and throw it into the dustbin. For another example, suppose an automatic newsagent stand is set up by a road with a large flow of pedestrians. Each newspaper sells for $1, and beside the pile of newspaper is placed a money box, from which buyers can get the changes of his money. In this situation, the civilized person would willingly place the money into the money box and take away the changes and then fetch a newspaper from the top of the pile of newspaper. The less uncivilized person would also place the money into the box, but would fumble through the box for the cleaner and tidier changes and would not take the newspaper directly from the top of the pile, but takes one from the middle of the pile. The uncivilized person would trickily pick newspaper from the pile when seeing no one around and would take one or even two newspaper without paying money, thinking, "It does not make any difference whether I take one for free or not." He would not consider other consequences. He would not pay attention to the losses sustained to the owner of the newspaper. For those who do not pay for the newspaper and worse still pick money from the box, this is not a matter of being civilized or not, but a matter of crime. Some may say that civilization does not have much to do with science. In the remote villages with rustic folkway, the doors were not shut at night and no one picked others' loss on the street. And doesn't this count for civilization? This question involves the understanding of science. It is generally believed that space shuttles, ion accelerators, computer networks, magnetic suspension trains, atomic energy power plants, cloning of life, nanotechnology, and atomic bombs are science, but farmers' planting of crops, housewives' cooking, workers' operation, and small business all have nothing to do with science. Many people are biased against science, believing that science is at the same time benefiting mankind and threatening the survival of civilization. For example, as a result of the development of science, people can no longer have any impression of the good old days, in which the doors were not shut at night and no one picked others' loss on the street. Some people even believe that science should be held responsible for the creation of killing machines like firearms, bombers, and atomic bombs, and that science has caused the bustling of mankind and accelerated the pace of life. There are even people who claim that the exhausted resources, the polluted earth, the damaged environment, and people's spiritual and mental stress are all evils committed by science. Science has been treated unjustly. Science is the activity and knowledge for understanding, exploring, and interpreting the laws of nature, human society, and thinking. How can we impute science simply because of some people's crooked application of science to other purposes? Science has caused the emergence of automobiles. Can we blame science if a driver has run into someone? Internet has burst into the modern stage with the development of science. Can we say that science is promoting drugs and pornographic picture albums if someone takes advantage of the network to promote drugs and porn picture albums? With the development of science and the appearance of television, VCD, DVD, CD, films, telephones, and floods of books and magazines, some people are utilizing these facilities to conduct vulgar propaganda, which causes people's tension and sense of time, apathy in human relations, and contortion in psychology and mentality. Can we blame science for all these bad effects? Science has caused the invention of atomic bombs, but can we say that science is intimidating people if someone threatens others with an atomic bomb? If it is tenable to ascribe all misbehaviors and evils of modern society to science, then the following logical reasoning should be completely correct. The reason why Xiao Wang committed murder is because his parents have given birth to him. If his parents have not given birth to him, there would not have been the problem of Xiao Wang's murder. Then not Xiao Wang but his parents should be blamed for the crime. However, Xiao Wang's parents were born by their respective parents, so Xiao Wang's parents' should be responsible for Xiao Wang's crime. If this reasoning goes further back, the primogenitor of mankind will have to be held responsible. Where did man's primogenitor come from? Then the earth cannot be exempt from the liability, because without the earth there would have been no primogenitor of mankind. The problem, however, does not end here. Without the solar system, there would have been no earth, and without the Milky Way galaxy, there would have been no solar system. And finally, the crime may be traced back to the greatest creator who has created the universe. The result of the logical reasoning is that the greatest creator is responsible for Xiao Wang's action of murder. This discursion is ridiculous. If this rationalization is not absurd, then there would be only one solution. Destroy mankind, destroy the universe. Who else wants to shift the blame onto science? There is a fallacy. Science is a double-edged sword, which undoubtedly implies that the sun is a double-edged ball, the orange is a double-edged fruit, the plane is a double-edged aircraft, and TV is a double-edged set. Everything is double-edged anywhere and anytime. The result is one's own parents are double-edged persons. If we compare science to a knife, it totally depends on the user of the knife and has nothing to do with the knife itself, whether the knife is used to chop vegetables, to mow grass, to slaughter pigs, or to kill people. When it comes to science, we have to talk about scientists. Now there are more and more scientists, which are a good thing and an inevitable result of social development. But the problem is, who can be called scientists? Who are scientists? Scientists are people who have discovered and can clearly describe or explain a certain law in the field of nature, society, and thinking, which is universally valid within a given limit of time and space. Newton is a scientist because he has discovered gravitation. Einstein is a scientist because he has discovered the mass-energy equation. Madame Curie is a scientist because she has discovered radioelements. Planck is a scientist because he has discovered quantum theory. Laplace is a scientist because he has discovered the uncertainty principle. Those who work in science laboratories or with scientists can only be called scientific workers and cannot be called scientists. People capable of explaining certain phenomena cannot be called scientists. Otherwise, I would also be a scientist. People working in certain Academy of Sciences cannot be called scientists. People only capable of making innovations and inventions, according to others' theories, cannot be called scientists and can only be called inventors, engineers, and technicians. Edison is not a scientist. People only capable of expounding others' theories are not scientists either. Many university teachers can explain the theory of relativity and quantum mechanics to students, but they are not scientists. Instead, they are teachers and professors. A person can only be regarded as one with great power of understanding, but cannot be considered a scientist if he has discovered certain law, but cannot explain it in clear words. Therefore, those who developed atomic bombs, according to Einstein's theories, cannot be called scientists. They can at best be regarded as scientific workers or engineers. Scientist is a sacred title. We should not abuse this title by using it randomly. Otherwise, science and scientists will be tarnished. A person is a scientist if he has discovered and explained a certain theory. That he may later do something detrimental to society with his discovery is a matter of his moral character and social standpoint and has nothing to do with the title of scientist. In the same way, a man has created wealth for himself and the society by making a knife. We cannot say that it is wrong to create wealth just because he later becomes a criminal by killing people with this knife. After we have discovered what science and scientists are, we will understand that science is the catalyst for civilization. Without the guidance of science, man would be like a mob of animals, irrational, irredeemable, and hopeless. Science and scientists are offspring of the greatest creator. The greatest creator has not created religion, but he has created science and scientists. A real scientist cannot deny the existence of the greatest creator, because all that are created by the greatest creator are not a result of random actions, but are based on science, laws, and principles. The road of science is the road of the greatest creator. Who are nearest to the greatest creator? Scientists. Human society is marching toward civilization. Today's society is more civilized than the past. Modern times are more civilized than past times. Whoever is hostile to science, to present time, and is afraid of the future can get undressed, destroy all you have, and go back to the virgin forest to see how you can survive. 40人类文明的兴起和衰落 40. The rise and decline of human civilization. In The Story of Mankind, a well-illustrated book, Hendrik van Loon strings together the great historic events of mankind like pearls. Based on his on-site interviews and investigations in Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, India, and other countries, Yu wrote a book called A Sigh of Millennium. Based on the on-site interviews and investigations in Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, India, and other countries, the Chinese author Yu wrote the book A Sign of Millennium. These two books are of great help for the accurately understanding of the rise and decline of human civilizations. We may find that civilizations are the crystallizations of human wisdom when we review the civilization of ancient Egypt civilization, Maya civilization, Persian civilization, Greek civilization, Athens civilization, Roman Empire, Islam civilization, civilization of medieval Europe, and the rise of England. The rise of a civilization depends on the progress of science and technology, without which there would be no civilization. Monkeys and gorillas have longer histories than man, but they have always remained in the wild and primitive stage for lack of the development and progress of science and technology. Then why did the arisen civilization decline? Civilization needs the guidance of an eternal spirit and pursuit. Without the guidance of an eternal belief, a civilization will be formidable and may perish any time. When a nation or country has a relatively advanced productive force, it is likely to think little of everything else. Swelling in pride, it deems itself the greatest creator when looking around. It does what it wants and regards itself the savior of the world. The consequence of swelling pride is that it tends to impose its will on other people, and the result is that it not only has destroyed other civilization but also brought about its own downfall. The Ephraim can survive from many disasters because they have the support of the Bible. The Indian civilization can endure because of the support of Buddha, Brahma, and Magmatron. Chinese civilization has sustained unflaggingly until today, mainly due to the support of the idea of oneness of heaven and man. With an eternal supporting point, man will not be overweening. Instead, they will feel modest and know that there is always someone stronger, and that man is not the supreme form of life and not the dominant force of the universe. America is the most powerful civilized nation in the world. The rise of its civilization is mainly due to their belief in God. Let's look at the word on the reverse side of the dollar bills. It is "In God we trust." If America does not believe in God but in itself, it is bound to decline and fall. It is not an easy course of development that man has gone through, and we should cherish what we have today. On the one hand, we are enjoying the fruits of modern civilization, but on the other, we are faced with the danger of destruction. Lao Tzu said, "When people have no fear of force, then, as is the common practice, great force descends." What is great force? It refers to a power unimaginable and uncontrollable by man. It is like the deluge recorded in the Bible, which was then unexpected and uncontrollable by man. There is an article called 10 Major Crises Confronted by Man, which mentions the impact of comet hitting Earth, nuclear war, and biorobots' control of mankind. But it didn't mention the greatest creator. It seems that the mere mention of the greatest creator means religious superstition and deviation from science. Will civilization unavoidably come to its end after it has reached certain phase of development? The answer is no. Whether a civilization can develop sustainably depends on whether man has the greatest creator in mind. With the belief in the greatest creator, the civilization will continue. Without, the civilization will perish any time. Just like a group of elephants, they will be punished by man if they ignore the existence of man and deem themselves masters of the earth, doing whatever they want and going on the rampage. Then what if I just believe in God's not the greatest creator? The answer is no. The civilizations in history that were destroyed all believed in gods, but had they got the salvation? Gods are not the supreme masters of the universe. Conflicts between gods often occur. They are busy attending to their own affairs. How can they spare themselves energy to care about us? How did Jesus' 12 disciples die? Just like in the era of Chairman Mao, if we did not uphold the banner of the thought of Chairman Mao but instead raised the banner of Liu Shaoqi, or the banner of Zhou Enlai, or the flag of certain minister or governor, we would not be able to save ourselves, and worse than that, the flags we raised may have been overturned. Will it do if I only believe in Buddha? As a saying goes, like a clay Buddha fording the river hardly able to save oneself. Buddhas are just life far superior to man. Living in the Elysium world, they have once made bold to come to the earth, and the greatest creator has forgiven their past wrongdoings and given them a way out. Do they have energy to attend us? In the history of Buddhism, there have been numerous cases in which temples were destroyed and monks were expelled. The sixth master of Buddhism could not even save himself, but had to hide himself in Hunter's home. Buddhism cannot even protect its founder, then can it protect us? In addition, the purpose of belief in Buddhism is not to enjoy life in human world, but only to go to the Elysium world of the West for another life. You are only daydreaming and know nothing about Buddhism if you want to enjoy the pleasure of life in human world and to go to the Elysium world after death at the same time. From 2013 onwards, if we prioritize our service to the greatest creator, we humankind may usher in the more glorious era. But if we pay no attention to the existence of the greatest creator, it is likely that the great force will come to the world. We must ponder over the paths to be taken. 小结 Summary. I have intended to use 50 phenomena to prove the existence of the greatest creator. Now, upon reflection, I have found that 40 phenomena are already enough to prove the existence of the greatest creator. The wisdom of the greatest creator has been embodied in the running of celestial bodies to the deployment of resources on earth, the brain of man to the instincts of animals, the operation of life to the extreme beauty, the occurrence of supernatural phenomena to the interpretation of dream, and the meaning of life and death to the rise and fall of civilizations. The greatest creator, and the greatest creator itself, is the lamplight to light the paths for mankind. 证明上帝存在的8个逻辑推理. The 8 logical inferences that prove the existence of the greatest creator. 1. 万物有源，源头为上帝. Everything has a source, and the source is the greatest creator. The Amazon that runs across South America, the bold and flowing Nile, the surging Yangtze, and the roaring Mississippi all have their headstreams. Benguela cold current, Peru cold current, Mozambique warm current, and Guyana warm current all have their sources. Rio de Janeiro London Airline, Los Angeles Paris Airline, Honolulu Manila Airline, and Paris Colombo Airline all have their starting points. All things created by man have come into being from a certain source. All tools that we use, including pencils, needles, spades, spoons, pliers, automobiles, computers, printers, cameras, and machine tools, and all daily articles, including musical instruments, chess, painting and calligraphy, watches, alarm clocks, desks, chairs, and wooden stool, shoes, stockings, clothes, caps, cups, thermoses, reading lamps, telephones, and refrigerators and TV sets have an origin, and obviously they don't come from none. The cats, dogs, goats, and pigs we raise at home all have an origin. Even peony, peaches, pears, and almonds can be traced back to their origins. Music, characters, arts, medicines, theories, methods, magic arts and alchemy, axioms and theorems all have a source. White Europeans, black African, yellow Asian, Arabians, and Brazilians are all descendants of their ancestors. The towering Himalayas, the fertile and vast Nile Delta, the extensive Amazon alluvial plain, the silver and white-wrapped Antarctica, all have formed from Earth transition. Everything has its origin. What about the Earth, the solar system, and the universe? They all have their origins. Since everything has an origin, there must be a primordial origin. And this primordial origin is the greatest creator. 万万物有源，源头为上帝. Everything has a source,